From the PSIA-AASI satellite studios in Hood River, Oregon, I'm George Thomas, the guest of Angelo and David. I'm like, wow.
Welcome, George.
Yeah, welcome, George. We are super excited. Yes, we have George Thomas, the host of our PSIA-AASI First Chair and some other podcasts and lots of stuff we're going to find out about here on the Fall Line with KS and Company. We are super excited to have you here, George. And I see that you're in the satellite studio, so you're at one of your other jobs.
I am, and I have a lot of them. I'm in the occupational and travel medicine clinic here in Hood River.
Yeah, I love Hood River. When I've gone out there in the summer to Mount Hood, and we've done the summer camps, it's so cool. We definitely shoot down into Hood River. It's an amazing place. Watching the sailing and the windsurfing and the kite surfing, it's just amazing.
I dropped out of graduate school to teach skiing full time for a winter and was going to go back in the summer, and then I got offered a job coaching racing on Hood in the summer, and I was like, I can do this year round.
Yeah, super cool. And I haven't been out there in a while, but we love it. We'd go down there and we'd get the guys would go for ice cream. I'd get a little bit of some sorbet, and we'd hang out and watch everything going on. But it was really cool. It's a pretty place. So
gorgeous, and the sun is actually out for the first time in quite a while. I'm looking at blue sky, and Mount Adams right across the river.
Jeez. And Angela, you're on the road. As I can see, you're not in your colorful little studio at home.
I'm in lovely State College, Pennsylvania. I'm going to do a member school training day tomorrow at Tussey Mountain. Looking forward to that. Can see it right out the window. Yep. On the road.
Cool. That's super awesome. So, George, we always ask our guests, and you're a ski pro. You've also been a skier, I assume, for a while to be a level 3. How did you learn? Like, where was the first time? Was it with family? Was it with friends? Was it in an organized lesson?
Family ski trip to Crested Butte, Colorado. I was 13 years old, and I had Besser plate bindings on my boots and was all excited, stood up and fell down immediately and went through a week's worth of group lessons. And with Bobby Gale, I mean, that's like 50 years ago. And I remember him so well. And I was like, wow, I want to be him someday.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I mean, we look at that and like, do we remember our first ski instructor? Do you remember, Angela?
I remember seeing a ski instructor named Mike Andrus from the chairlift.
Yeah.
And it had never really dawned on me to take lessons, but when Mike was Mike was like a legit hippie guy, and this was back in the late 80s. And I remember like being 15 or something with my bump rat friends, and we were all self-taught. But like, I remember seeing Mike ski under the chair, and I thought that guy like really knows, like he looks like he knows what he's doing. And that's what compelled me to start taking lessons. But we were lucky. Our ski club moderator at high school was an associate member of PSIA. He was a level 2, and he took us out all the time and gave us free lessons. Yeah. So that's kind of how it evolved. Yeah.
Yeah, that's super cool. So, and what was your ski life growing up, George? Was it family kept going weekends or?
Yeah, we would take a ski trip every year, and I just loved it. I really looked forward to that. That was the high point of my year, and I ran track and cross country, and skiing was kind of right in between the two. And I really wanted to become an instructor, and graduated college kind of in the transition between undergrad and grad school. And I just saw an ad at a Warren Miller weekend in Corvallis, Oregon, that Hoodoo Ski Bowl was looking for instructors. And I thought, they'll never hire me, but I want to go try out and just have the experience. And I was blown away to see my name on the little roster of people who had made it. And that was in 1986. So I'm coming up on 40 years, actually.
Yeah. Cool. And has it been going right along every single winter? Were some winters full-time, all part-time?
Actually, a number were full-time. I really always looked at this as a profession, and it was hard hearing, when are you going to get a real job and all that stuff. And it's like, this is my real job. I love this. I really, truly enjoy it. I got my associate my first year teaching, and then I got my level 3 the next year, or full cert, and took the level 3 again in the early 2000s just to stay up to date, and got that. So I don't think I could pass it now.
Just keep going to those updates. As long as you can do that update, you're all set.
Pay the dues. I'm good.
That's definitely the way to go. And I know you're still teaching a little bit. I think it's at Mount Hood Meadows.
Yes, I go up there on Friday nights. I really love to teach skiing, and I'm kidding. I am working on my divisional clinic leader. I'd really like to get that as a status. But I do need to spend more time on the snow. I've had some major surgeries the last couple of winters and have not been able to ski that much. And I mean, my last 5-ish winters, I was full-time instructor and was getting over 100 days every year out. And but my body's also really taken a toll. At the end of the season, I was getting cortisone shots in my knees, and I just was not feeling great physically. So when I had the opportunity to take this job in Oregon and get back into healthcare, which I really enjoy, I had to jump at it and just go to teaching very part-time.
Yeah. And you do a lot of stuff. I mean, it's really cool. We're so excited to have you on, where we know you do be a First Chair Podcast for PSIA-AASI. But I mean, you also have your own media company, the Over the Top Media. And I think you started that in like 2012. But there's multiple things you do with that. And can you tell us a little about that?
We came up with a name. I always had really big parties at the end of the bicycle races that I direct. And because I really like an opportunity for people who have done something that hard to share it with each other, because nobody at work is going to understand racing a bike for 500 miles nonstop. It's like, oh, I can't do that in a car. But you're with people who can really appreciate what you just went through. So I really wanted to have a big celebration with the riders and the crews that had just done our event. And somebody came up and was like, my gosh, your parties are over the top. And I was turning 50 at the time. And I was like, I like over the top more than over the hill. So that's what I made my company name.
That is super cool. Because you've been doing some stuff, even I think before that, you were doing some, you were doing stuff for the bike races and that, and you're up there on the podium at the end of the day, at the end of the race, and talking to all the athletes. So were you doing some stuff before you started the Over the Top productions?
I actually was in radio. Yeah, in the 80s. I loved radio. I never wanted people to be able to see my face, so I'm very shy on this production. And it, I just loved radio. I really liked being kind of that hidden voice. And so I had a morning drive. I was a morning drive DJ when I was in grad school. I was a newscaster. Also did the college radio station. And I really, really enjoyed it, but it was kind of a weird industry. It didn't pay much at all. And people were always like recording themselves and looking to move on. And I really felt the dedication of the radio station where I worked, and got back into school, and that just kind of fell apart as I'd work part-time in radio throughout, the ski season, but it really didn't pay any bills at all.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I had some very serious health problems right after I passed my level 3. I really felt like I'd gotten onto a trajectory. I wanted to be on the Northwest Tech team, and I mean, my goal was to eventually try out for the national team. But I had been hit by a car, gone headfirst through the windshield. Should have been dead. I was getting on a motorcycle. A drunk driver hit me as I was getting on the motorcycle, but I had my full face helmet and a leather jacket on. they were doing 45 to 55 miles an hour. I got thrown 160 feet. It was bad. And I developed seizures from the brain injury. And I'd been having these weird dizzy spells throughout the season I was teaching and preparing for my full cert level 3. And gosh, it was maybe a month after I passed, maybe not even that long, I fell over with a full generalized seizure. But that ended up becoming a total blessing in disguise. Yeah. I went through absolute hell, but got onto a trial medication. And they ended up making me their poster boy because I was teaching skiing again at Mount Hood and had done Race Across America, this nonstop coast-to-coast bike race, which nobody with seizures is, it's like, no, there's flashing lights, you're under extreme sleep deprivation. But the med really was a miracle product for me. And they had me give a speech at the product launch to their sales force, and the marketing team came up and they said, "We're going to make you a star," which they did not. But a couple of years of being a public speaker, and they totally sponsored me through the 1995 Race Across America. And I wasn't a professional, but I was living on sponsor money, and I got to do this race that had been my dream for so long, solo. I'd done it on relay teams the 2 years before. And I even ended up getting a book out of the deal. Yeah. It was funny.
Yeah. And if people don't know what the Race Across America is, it's like the real deal. It's like 3,000 miles. I mean, I've read some stuff that it's compared to being harder than the Tour de France, harder than the Ironman. And I mean, just a tough race.
It's different. People that are great at Race Across America, Christoph Strasser, I mean, he could have raced professionally. There's no way I could have ever competed, at national level, let alone as a pro. That was my dream, obviously. I really wanted to be good on my bike, but I just wasn't that good. But Race Across America is a real test of your endurance and how bad do you want to finish. What are you willing to put yourself through? Because it is nonstop. The clock never stops when they say go. And you start riding. You've got, back in the day, now you have 12 days to finish, and then they adjust it for different categories. But back in the day, you had to finish within 48 hours of the winner. And I mean, it was a real race.
Yeah.
And it was... I remember everyone I've done so well, and when they put me in the Hall of Fame in 2014, that was pretty much a high point of my athletic career. And then Race Across the West, they brilliantly came up with in 2007, and that is the first third of Race Across America. So the first year I did it, we went oceanside to Taos and won that. And then I announced the finish, and then I flew or officiated RAAM all the way to the RAAM finish. And then I announced the finish of RAAM, and I have announced the finish of RAAM every year since 2009. That's cool. 7 of those years I have raced Race Across the West, and then gone to the finish and announced at RAAM. So it's been, and I've done a lot of cycling podcasts and things in there. And, it's really rewarding for me to be out on the course with the people that are doing RAAM, even though I've been stopping at the 1,000-mile mark, but to at least experience the mountains and the heat of the desert and experience some of what the people that are doing Race Across America are actually going through. And I just love being the person to greet them at the finish. I mean, it's such a huge moment.
Yeah, and I read in your book that you were talking about your sleep rhythms were like messed up for months afterwards until you could get back into rhythm. It was because the clock didn't stop. You were racing, you'd take a break. What was it, like maybe 3 hours of sleep and then back on it?
I am really weak in the heat. The people who are really good at sleep, maybe a half hour. Some can sleep a little bit more. I needed 3 hours. So I would take like a 2-hour break in the heat of the day, and then I'd take an hour nap at night.
Yeah, man. Oh man. Angelo, I don't think we could do it, man.
Dude, I can barely make it through one of these shows.
Jess and Stan took me on an 18-mile bike ride, and I'm like, my God, we're in the saddle for like 4 hours. I'm dying here. So
believe me, that's how I feel now.
but that's pretty incredible, and it was neat to read that you talked about it. It was a physical and an emotional roller coaster, and those are the things you had to really control, because at times you felt good. And at times you didn't. You were talking about that when you did the tandem, which was pretty cool, because you've done it solo, tandem, and as a relay team.
4-person relay. We won in 93. I did it solo in 95, and they billed it as the toughest race in the universe that year. And I saw somebody going on a tandem, and I was like, wow, no, that is the toughest. So I really made up my mind to do it on a tandem. Which I did in 2000, and then again in 2002, and no tandem has finished since. It's not just because you've got two bodies doing the whole thing on the same bike, but people's sleep patterns are different, and on a tandem, you're only as fast as the slowest person, and it is brutal. It's so hard psychologically.
George, how do you push through the tough parts?
Looking in the mirror and just think, you're going to have to look back and realize you didn't make it. How are you really going to feel, and how are you going to deal with that? And it's always kept me going.
And that must translate over into a lot of what you do, that mentality.
It does. I'm super competitive, but at the same time, I'm not. And I'm not kidding about this. Especially announcing the finish, when you see people finish and they've had a great race, it comes through no matter where they've finished. People that have had a bad experience, there's excuses, and you beat me, but we had this happen. And everybody has stuff go wrong in something like that. If stuff goes wrong in a 100-meter dash, there's always excuses out there. And what I really like, and when I feel good going into an event or teaching a lesson, or like you said, anything I do, if I am prepared, if I've trained myself to the point where I've got the confidence to know that I could not have done anything more to do a better job, and you beat me, I want to be able to walk up to you at the end and go, wow, Angelo, what a fantastic race. That's awesome. Good job. I don't want to give you an excuse. And if I feel I did my absolute best, I'm fine with you beating me. If I didn't do everything I could to train as well as I should have, or have my nutrition go off, or things like that, I don't feel like that's even fair to you as my competition. I don't want to come up and say, well, here's the reason you beat me. I want to congratulate you because of the effort you made.
Yeah.
When you look back, can you remember the first time you really pushed yourself through something grueling?
I do. I was like in second grade, and there was a 20-mile run in San Antonio, Texas, where I grew up. And my dad was a weirdo who ran in the 60s. And so we were all weirdos too. But we're in this 20-mile run, and I'd gotten separated from my dad. And I was just pushing and feeling lost. And there's other runners out there. And I started crying and just sat on a curb. And my dad finally came by in a car and saw me and picked me up. And I kid you not, I'm like 6, 7 years old. I had done over 19 miles. The finish was right around the next curve. And that has never left me. I quit as a 6-year-old.
Wow.
And the finish was right there. And oh my God, that really hurt. And I remember it still.
Wow.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Yeah. And that stuck, man. So because it's like I don't think, and everything I've read, all the RAAMs that you entered, you finished, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, how many?
I've done Race Across America 6 times and Race Across the West 7 times.
Oh my God. I mean, that's like, that's just like 18,000 miles just in the RAAM. That is incredible. Yeah. And your prep for that wasn't just like on the bike. I mean, I've read and I've heard you say in a couple of podcasts, you talked about your nutrition and I mean, when you were going to sleep and you did say, and you've already mentioned you didn't like the heat. You love riding at night.
Oh, that's what attracted me to it at the beginning when I saw it on Wide World of Sports back in, I think it was 82. And I saw these guys out racing at night. I was just like, oh my gosh, that looks so cool. And I love riding at night.
Yeah. So what was some of the best spots you were riding at night? Like, I'm trying to think of like out there, you get your light on, but like if you're out there and what was you describing, like going across Oklahoma or was it in the mountains? Like what was the easiest to ride at night?
That's where it's awesome because you're not seeing the Oklahoma scenery. For me, it was the desert because the desert was my just Achilles heel. It just killed me. And then to be able to go down and come up when the sun's coming or, when the moon's coming up and you just feel like a completely different person. It's amazing. In 21, the heat, it didn't break at night. It stayed over 100. Yeah. And I was doing a 2-person relay on Race Across the West. And oh my gosh, I had to go to the hospital ER and they pumped me full of IVs and they were stunned when I got up and said, well, I'm heading back out onto the course. And they were like, no, you're not. And I said, yeah, I am. And I said, we're winning. And there's another, ER in Prescott.
Wow. So how often do you do your podcast for cycling? Like, is it a weekly, monthly, or do they sporadic or?
That has become very sporadic, which is sad. And I'm talking to Oregon Bike Racing, OBRA, the Oregon Bike Racing Association, and we are planning to do a podcast together. And I just need to have the time to do it. I do another podcast for Boulder Ballet, Raising the Bar, which is totally fun. But cycling is how I started podcasting. I heard someone had a bike show, and I was like, wow, I live in Boulder, Colorado, and there's all these professionals around here. I'm going to start doing this. And it was really cool. I did some really fun shows. Ian Boswell, who started out here in Oregon as a junior, I was able to connect with him, and I followed him on stages through the Tour of California. And then as he made it onto into the professional ranks and was racing for Team Sky, we were doing daily check-ins from the Giro d'Italia, the Vuelta a España. And I mean, they're quick little 6 to 8 minute, hey, what was it like for you today? And some of those were the coolest interviews I've ever gotten. I mean, here's Ian, who's not he wasn't the team leader. He's a domestique. So he's an assistant to help the leader, but he found himself up. I think he was in 3rd place on one of the toughest climbs in the Vuelta. And his team director comes up next to him in the car and he's like, all right, Ian, this is your time. I want you to go. And I was like, God, what was, and I actually got chills thinking about it. What was that like for you? I mean, that might not have been fun at all. He goes, no, it was terrifying. It's like, there's this massive climb ahead of me and the director says, go.
Man, that is cool though. And I know that, I mean, riding like you have, it's got to be pretty easy talking to those kind of athletes. Cause I mean, you've been through the pain, as you said, and had to work through, Angelo's like, what's the hardest? And he's like, when he was 6, Angelo.
I was not expecting to hear that.
Yeah. But there's a sort of empathy that what it's taken to get there. That's got to help out in that conversation.
In that sport, for sure. And I think where I actually built a real following with the cycling was it was back when drugs were the hot topic. And I was just like, look, I'm not going to surprise you with any stupid questions about that. I want to know what's going on with you personally. And let's just keep it to that. And I gained so much access to the professional ranks. It was great. I loved it. But it was a very expensive hobby.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was kind of asking. It was like, what were you riding for bikes then? And what are you riding for bikes now?
I actually have always done pretty well. I actually quit looking for sponsorship when I reached a certain age because I was like, I don't want to go to a company and ask them to fund my fun.
Yeah.
I just am not comfortable doing that. And so I really work hard to try to raise money or cut costs where I can. And that's what I do.
Yeah. So how many bikes did you?
A beautiful Girard full Campanolo 12-speed. It's just gorgeous. It's a boutique bike company out of Kirkland, Washington.
Yeah. So when you did like the Race Across America, what did you have? Because I know you had a whole team and, support team in that. Like when you did it solo, like how many bikes did you have to have and what kind of services did you have for your mechanic working on it?
I just had 3 bikes. I was sponsored by Serrata, and they gave me a titanium bicycle to race on. And it was beautiful. I ended up giving that to the Epilepsy Foundation of Boston, and they sold it off as a fundraiser. And the guy who wrote the foreword of my book actually bought it. And that all went to the Epilepsy Foundation, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But having the mechanic and bringing parts, I never have overpacked, but I said I basically need enough stuff that we can have to rebuild a bike if things go wrong, because I really don't want to have a broken, weird part be the reason we have to stop. Yeah. And that was really nice. Those were sponsorships I was really comfortable asking for, because it was like, may we please take this equipment, and then anything we use, I'll pay for it.
Yeah. And you've done some great things for folks to learn about epilepsy, and that race across the West in Oregon. I think it's still going on. And how many years is it now? 20 something.
So that I think we started it in 1996. Oh, I think I told you 26 years. This is 28 years.
Yeah.
And so when Race Across America started, it started as the Great American Bike Race, and it was on the wide world of sports. And all these crazies saw this event and came out of the woodwork and were like, hey, I want to do that. And people were not ready. So they came up with a qualification system. And I had been thinking how I would like to give back to the sport by putting on a Race Across America, or RAAM qualifier. And I came up with a Race Across Oregon, started at the Oregon-Idaho border, and finished at the coast. And they said, great, let's do it. And we ended up getting a ton of coverage that year in the Oregonian newspaper. And people were calling me going, hey, when's the race next year? And I was like, oh, I didn't really want to be a race director, but okay, let's do it. And I've done it every year except COVID. No, we actually did it during COVID. I was the first ultra event to get a permit to race during COVID year. And I had to cancel a couple of races that I put on earlier than that. But I really wanted Race Across Oregon to keep going. And I had to submit my plans to a medical board and give all my rules, that there were no stop zones. We would do this, follow this protocol when people had to stop and go into a store. And I got my permit.
Super cool. That is awesome. Mm-hmm. Really awesome. And what's next? Because I mean, I know you're still biking a couple days. You said you're doing some bike classes at 5:30 a.m. at the indoor.
I go to work.
Yeah.
And I was so proud this morning. One of the participants came up and said, "Wow, Tuesday was the hardest class I'd ever done until this morning.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. What's a class like? What was that hardest class like until today? What was Tuesday like?
Oh, it was ladders. It was a minute on, minute off, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off, 3 minutes on, 1 minute off, 4 minutes on, 1 minute off, and then back down to 1, and then back up to 4 and back down. But like last Thursday, we did minute on, minute off, 2 minutes on, minute off, 3, all the way up to 10, and then back down. Our town was just snowed in, and we had some extra time, and I had some people there that were like, yeah, let's do it. It was a workout I called the kitchen sink, and we did just a whole variety of different drills on the bike where, all out. And when I say all out, I mean, you got nothing at the end of 40 seconds, and then you got 20 seconds to recover, and you do it again. And then follow that up with maybe a minute or 2 minutes rest and do a 4-minute sweet spot interval, and then stand for 15 seconds. Awesome. Now let's increase the resistance by 1 and keep standing. And now let's increase the resistance by 1 again. And now sit down and keep that resistance.
Oh my God.
Did you have an over the top party for them after that workout?
No, but we're all planning to start doing some outdoor rides when summer gets here, and we'll still do the indoor class, but it would be fun to really get together with the regulars, and because I'll play chase around town. I mean, I know the routes around here really well, and I'll look at my clock and it's like, oh, we're 10 minutes in, and if we're following this route, we're going to be on this very easy seated climb that's got some hairpins in it, and I can tell the residents exactly where we are, and now we're on this 14% pitch, and now Dave's excited and he's got to attack, and Angelo has to chase him, and now we're going.
I don't know, Angelo, man. I think we die in the first 5 minutes.
Glad I'm in Pennsylvania for that.
Hey, we just got to make sure we go out there when it's good snow, and he doesn't want to get us on the bike so we can just go skiing.
Right.
The hard thing for me is I've had these health issues and gnarly surgeries that make me not want to sit on a bike seat very much.
Yeah.
But I've had some really bad injuries from a car accident and then getting hit by a deer when I was descending a mountain pass back in 2012. 2014. But I grew up as a runner, like I said, and because of the injuries I received, I really had a lot of hard times running. But I thought, if you're not going to be on the bike, you can run shorter distances and work on your speed. And I'm 61 years old right now, and my goal is to break 20 minutes in a 5K.
Wow.
And for my age group, that would be pretty good. And I mean, it's kind of like skiing, and everything I've done, I've been okay, but never great. It takes a lot of work to get to your level 3, but I really wanted to be on the tech team and try out for the national team, and I never got there. Oh. With cycling, I really wanted to hit national level and see how I could do if I tried pro, and just not that good. And with running, I was like a Division III recruit. I was a 16-minute 5K runner in high school, but I just couldn't get any faster. And I thought, as I'm going out, I can train at intervals and not hurt myself. And I can really work on speed. What I can't do is run for, 45 minutes. And I thought, so do what you can do and see if you can do it really well. And I'm getting my interval pace is down under 6 minutes a mile. And,
that's good.
I want to push myself to go too fast when I'm doing 200s, 400s, and 600s, so that when I finally get up to racing a 5K at the pace I want, I can slow down to a 620 mile and have a shot at it. 615.
There's a lot of goal setting, man. He's a goal setter, Angelo. There's always goals and some little short-term objectives in there, but he's got an end goal. I mean, there's always has to be a goal there, not just. I think. Go ahead.
I'm feeling super inferior right now.
I know.
I'm sitting here like in this hotel room with this bag of M&Ms. And I'm like looking at it going, I'm going to throw that away when it's over.
Well, you know what my name is online and like when I'm playing Scrabble or things like that, I'm the skinny hippo because I would love to be fat. I love treats and I love to eat, but I really have these things that I want to do, want to achieve. And I've never been an age group kind of guy, but at this age, it's like, your body changes and you do change as you get older. And I do have limitations from injuries and from aging. And it's like, no, I want to be the best I can be. And focusing on shorter distances with running is where I can do that.
That's
George,
cool.
if you want to be fat, bud, we're going to get you on our plane.
We'll send him some Starburst jelly beans. We'll have him hang out with Paul. Paul will teach him. Paul loves treats.
I'm going to email you a workout when it's
I gotta tell you, I mean, that to me, like, I loved being in radio. I really liked it. And when I saw podcasts come up, it was like, oh my gosh, what an awesome opportunity to get it back into this. And so now to be able to do interviews with people on the national team and go to Interski and really have some amazing life experiences because of my voice and interview skills, it's like, that was hard for me at first. It was like, no, I wanted to make it as a skier. And it's like, but you're really getting some great involvement and doing more than I ever could have as a skier by doing the podcast and interviewing these really amazing skiers and with just this incredible knowledge. And to be able to provide the venue for them to get that out to the membership, that is really rewarding, and I love it.
Yeah, I love the stuff you did at Interski because it wasn't just the national team members. There's a lot of you had some of our delegation that sat down with you, and you really got what their experience was out. I thought the questions and the way you drew out their experience was really cool.
Oh my gosh, Interski was so much fun, and I was only on snow 2 to 3 days. We got 31 interviews. I actually had a studio set up on a table at a bar in the hotel and I interviewed the bartender. But they were like, that is your spot. And we had mixing board. I had everything set up on this table and was just in there for hours and people were coming in. It was awesome. I loved it.
Yeah. Did you have something, Angel?
No, I've been ready to say that your attitude is amazing, George. And I think you've said the word love in this episode about the things you do more than anybody has said it in our previous 83 episodes. And that's amazing. It just kind of pours out of you, your enthusiasm. It's really cool. It's infectious.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I think
now we have to go on a diet because of it.
Yeah, we got to go on a diet because George, he's just making us feel like we have to. But your enthusiasm and like when you're interviewing someone, I think they absolutely can feel that, and they know that you're very interested in what they have to say. I think that's one of the cool things when I listen to you interviewing people. I mean, you're definitely interested in finding out what they are going to say.
I love that you brought that. I said love again. Whoops. I really like that you brought that up because people will ask, what questions are you going to ask? And when I started this and when I was in news, I would let people know what the questions were going to be. And say I was interviewing you And you would say something and I'd go, oh my gosh, what you just brought up is so much more interesting than what I have written down. But because we're going to stick to the questions, and so I just changed it. And I was like, no, I want to do a fireside chat with people and just find out about them. And I can be the guide, but I'm going to let what you bring up kind of guide me. And if we're doing an interview that we really need to get across some key points, then I want to know what those key points are. But I want to find out about you. I heard this at a symposium discussion in the Northwest a few years ago, but the speaker said, listen to remember rather than respond. And that's really hard when you're an interviewer because you want to, our job is to respond. But when I really found myself listening to my guest and building the interview around what they were saying, I really felt like the quality went way up.
Yeah, that's cool. And you love that short fireside chat or the shorter kind of interviews. Does that just come from back when you were doing a lot of the interviews with the bike stuff and that because they were 6-7 minutes or?
Partially. I actually met Stephen Nyman at a bike ride in Nederland, Colorado, and we really hit it off. And I followed him through his race season. And we were doing a regular weekly show. It was really cool. And I started doing a show for the Ski Racing Association. And I was sad that just kind of fell apart. But I had a lot of interviews with a lot of the top ski racers from all around the world during this. And I started watching the hits on where I was posting the podcasts, and you could see, my listenership would be huge. And then at about 15 to 20 minutes, people start to drop.
Yeah.
And I thought, if I want to ever make money with this, I want to be able to go in and say, look, we're going to hit your product here at the start. We can give you a quick little mention again in the middle. And then I want you at the finish. And there were some guests where you'd have a big listenership right at the beginning and it would drop off in 5 minutes. But Stephen had a great following. And he's one of the few I had 100% listenership all the way through. But 20 minutes really seemed like the max for listenership with most of those. And so when I came up with the idea of doing a ski-related show with an instructor, that's what I really wanted to keep it at that length. And I changed my hour interviews in the cycling show to 20 minutes. And we were getting over 80,000 downloads a month. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But again, it was just a very time-consuming hobby that was really a full-time job.
Yeah. So I got to ask you, when you first started, like when you go, hey, I'm going to do a couple podcasts, what did you have for equipment? Because I know Angelo and I, we had our little laptops. I was sitting in the kitchen table. He was sitting in the bedroom with a table in one of the bedrooms at his house, and that's all we had, Zoom.
With Jake in the corner, choking on the chicken.
Yeah, Jake in the corner.
Remember that?
Yes. Jake started snoring on the bed.
I had a condenser mic.
Yeah.
And it was like, ooh, this thing's cool. And then I found out that, just that microphone, you have the mixing board inside the mic, and it may look really cool, but it's not that good. So now what I like when I was at Levy and when I go to team training, I use a really inexpensive Shure, just full-on mic because it's so directional. But I have a good quality mixing board with my laptop. But I really like having background noise if we're like out in a bar or whatever.
Yeah.
But I don't want that background noise to overwhelm what's coming across. So I have a very nice little mobile setup, and then a nice setup at the house.
Yeah.
Very nice setup. Yep.
Yeah, I figure it's a little better setup now.
And much different.
yeah. It is. That's pretty cool. And so you're going to get back a little. You were talking about get into the cycling podcast a little bit more, hopefully.
With Obra, yeah, I really want that to happen this year. That is the goal.
Well, that'd be super, super cool. I'd love listening to that. And what else is on there that we haven't talked about? There's got to be, I mean, the way you set things, I'm going to do this, there's got to be some things out there you haven't told us that you're like looking to do other than break the running milestone.
Well, it's funny. Ballet, I absolutely love performing. I was in community theater when 20-ish years ago, 30 years ago. I was Willy Wonka. And I had seen the Nutcracker when I was a kid, and my favorite character was this crazy looking thing that comes out called Mother Ginger. And she's usually played by a guy. She's on stilts. And when my daughter was in Boulder Ballet, the role of Mother Ginger came open. And they were like, hey, you ski. Would you be afraid to walk on stilts? And I was terrified to walk on stilts, but I was like, of course not. I would love to do it.
Yeah. Oh.
So I put two bars together and was on stilts. That now I can hop back and backwards on them. I dance on stilts with a 100-pound costume on. This was my 5th year of being Mother Ginger. And they've expanded my role. I'm in Act 1 as a butler in the party scene. And now I'm taking weekly ballet lessons. And I've worked bar routines into my post-cycling at the gym. I do bar work 5 days a week. And it is incredible what that does to your legs.
Oh, man.
And it's awesome for balance.
Yeah.
But it looks like I've got a shot at being in the spring production in 2025, which we were just talking about. And hopefully Mother Ginger for as long as they're there, because I have so much fun doing that. It's a crazy costume.
I don't think there's much that George Thomas does that he doesn't love to do. I mean, it looks like you love to have fun. I mean, that's a few of the people I spoke to. It's like, yeah, George likes to have some fun. Very colorful guy. I mean, that's got to be something.
Hey, George, I'm remembering your costume from fall team training.
Oh, yes.
Tell Dave what you had on there.
I taught a women's program class at Eldora, and a multi-time class participant runs a nonprofit called the Inland Ocean Coalition. And every year she would do the Mermaid Masquerade Ball. And COVID changed that. And she said, I need to have some mermen do like a strip tease on film. And so I was in full ski garb and end up in my merman outfit with a fishtail. And he goes, yeah, now we want you back at the party next year at the ball. And I want you in your merman outfit to walk around and serve drinks. And I'm like, no, I am not walking around as a merman in a fishtail with no shirt. And so I came up with this idea. She had no clue I was doing it, but I went to Boulder Ballet and my top half, I have tux with tails, bow tie, and make up my face a little bit to look like a penguin. And then I have the fishtail on the bottom. And I showed up in that outfit and they loved it. So the Mergwin now goes back.
Oh, man.
Goes back to the Inland Ocean Coalition every year to serve drinks and get raffle tickets and things like that. And I happen to have my Mergwin suit in the back of my car. And it was, the last weekend of October. And I was like, well, I should be wearing a Halloween costume. So I went out and put on my Mergwin outfit and I think made a lot of people uncomfortable. but Eliza Coons really liked it.
I know Angelo did because he was telling me about it. Oh my God, that's so. But it's super cool just to see somebody having fun, and I do your interviews. I think when you're asking questions, you can tell you really want to know what people think and what they experience. And so I want to ask you. I mean, you were at Interski, and what was your experience? Whether it be a session you went to, or what was the experience interviewing the folks? Because the energy at Interski, even when you weren't there, if you were watching it and watching the streaming of different stuff, and I could watch the ski hill with the webcam. I mean, there was just a ton of energy. What was it like to be that person there, kind of reporting on it and getting all the vibe of what those people were experiencing?
That was amazing. And what you just described was even more amazing than actually being in Finland. It was the people that just made that. It was incredible. And I've got to say, talk about enthusiasm to go out and be on the hill in the group with Josh Fogg and Dusty Dyer, who were teaching people skills. And it was incredible what they came up with. And I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, you guys came up with the best way to show this. And it made me so excited. Just to come back, I wanted to teach that in a clinic at Meadows. And unfortunately didn't have the opportunity. But it really made me want to get out on the hill and teach this stuff because they did such an amazing job with it. I would say a close second was being out with Emily Lovett's group on Nordic, because I didn't have any Nordic skis. And so I was like, wow, I've got all my gear and I got to run. So I was out just hoofing it while they were on their skis and trying to stay up with the group. That was a riot. But to actually be there and get to sit in and listen to the lectures, and what an incredible learning opportunity and an incredible setting with the best in the world was just, It was amazing.
Yeah. Super cool. And it's been great that you came on. It's really neat. A lot of the podcast stuff for us, for Angelo, I know we just wanted to share, get time to talk with people. People ask me all the time. I know they ask Angelo, what do we get out of this? Because, the podcast, we get so much money. You make a fortune. Yeah. Buying all the stuff, the mics and everything.
You're getting paid?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I got Starburst jelly beans. That's what I got paid, man. So
I must need an agent.
Yeah, but it's kind of that it's the chatting and getting the experience, sitting down with Michael or Robin or Ellen to listen to what their experiences were, and a lot of people don't get that, so it's kind of neat. And that was, I think, was the greatest thing with everything that was streamed, and then your podcast where you had the people in the bar, you had the whole setup there, and we're chatting with people. That was really the connection for a lot of folks that weren't at Interski.
What blew me away was a lady from Sweden comes up and she goes, I listened to your show. Yeah. I'm so happy to meet you. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And luckily I spoke with back after 95 RAAM, the guy who produced the film that they had made about it, and news clips and things like that. He said, would you stop being so modest? And I was like, I can't. He goes, if someone comes up and says they want your autograph, how would you feel if you walked up to Angelo and said, Angelo, I want your autograph? And Angelo said, no, you don't, which is it's like, why? So to have someone come up who listens to the show, I was glad I had that advice, because it was really good advice. Because of course my first reaction was, you got to be kidding me. Instead, with this person, I was like, wow, thank you so much. I would like to have you on the show and hear about your experience at Interski. And she was one of our guests.
Yeah, that's awesome. Super cool. Yeah. And before we finish up, I want to make sure folks know your book that kind of documents it was the 1995 ride, I believe, when you did solo of RAAM, the Race Across America, is Going the Distance. And I read a little bit so far. It's super cool to read through what it was like doing that, because I won't be doing it. I don't think Angelo will either.
No, not in the condition you're in now.
but I think it'd be a great book for people to look at to see just the determination and as you talk about in there and every single one you finish, which is pretty impressive. Because I mean, you probably know. I mean, if I ask you like how many people don't make it, there's got to be quite a few that don't finish.
Over 50%.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a
2021 when I was telling you when the heat was so bad, the finish rate was, oh gosh, like 3 solos made it. It was so hard. The heat all the way across the country was just brutal. I don't want to exaggerate, but it was 75 to 80% dropout.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that pretty crazy, and just it's really neat in there to read through, and then your story. I mean, so much of it where you were coming out there and being the poster boy, as you said, for the company there that has the miracle drug for you. That you've been doing well for years and decades now, right?
I have not had a seizure since October of '89.
That's awesome. That is super cool. And just the amount of people you've touched through that and through the vehicle of biking and doing those things, must be amazing. How many people you've educated or the knowledge out there and be able to raise the funds through the Oregon race. It just must be, 28 years you said now.
It is really crazy to still get emails from, that book is hard to find now. I'm actually need to get the motivation to add some more chapters.
There you go.
And asked to rewrite it. And again, I'm just like, if I was any good, somebody else would write the book. It really is. It's so meaningful and powerful to get an email from someone who's like, wow, this really touched me because I'm dealing with seizures, and to see that you've made it and had a successful life is really meaningful to me. And to get something like that, it's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, that's super cool and humbling, I imagine. Absolutely great. And that's why it's cool. These are some of the funnest parts that I have with the podcast, where I don't know some things about folks. And as we get towards the podcast, or we find out through it of the amazing things that different people do out there. And it's super amazing the accomplishments you've had through biking and the races and the knowledge you put out there, which is super cool. And obviously the stuff you're doing with PSIA-AASI with the podcast Day of the First Chair is cool. And I'm looking forward. I want to listen to the bike one when you get it rolling again. That'll be super cool to listen to, because I can listen to it and not kill myself going out there and training with it. Because if we get in his bike classes, Angelo, we're done for. We might not ski that year.
There's 0% chance.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll tell you, last Thursday, hard workout, and then I ran on the treadmill for 30 minutes, which was really an effort for me. And then to teach the next night, my class kicked my rear. I was like, oh my, my legs are dead.
Yeah. God, but yeah, it's super cool. And that's why we want to thank the friends of the fall line with Chaos and Company. Blizzard Technica is super supportive of us and helping us keep this going. And Nick's Boot Fitting over by Mount Snow. Go over and visit Nick and make sure you get all your boots done and set up right so you can perform well out there. And then Rollerblade during the summer, man. You got to get on something and get on the bikes too. But Rollerblade is absolutely helping us out. And we just like to thank all them. And we've got some super friends out there, Angelo, too. Some great fans of the podcast, and want to just put a shout out there to the professor, Dave Berger. He's one of our super fans and been a super supporter, and we can't thank him enough.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Dave. Yep.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And George Thomas, thanks so much for joining us. I hope you come back. I think it's super fun for all of us that are doing these kind of things, definitely with a professional like yourself. It's super awesome to have you on here with us, with Angelo and I. And, so many little podcasts are going on. Hopefully we can encourage people to get out there and share and give it a shot, because so many are nervous to record that first time. And what am I going to sound like? And unfortunately, all of us don't have that great George Thomas voice.
No, most of us sound like we do.
Yeah, I know. That's definitely an advantage you have. You gotta admit that, George. You gotta admit that.
Thank you.
Yes, correct, David. Thank you for bringing that.
Yeah, absolutely correct. But thanks a lot for joining us, and hopefully we can chat some more, because it's always a pleasure listening, and and now it's definitely a pleasure. It's been awesome to meet you here. Hopefully I'll meet you in person, and maybe we'll have some chats together. That'd be pretty cool. But
that would be fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. This has been The Foul Line with Chaos and Company.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Yeah.